What's up, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite New York Jets subscription podcast, Badlands. I'm your host, Joe Caporoso, joined as always by Connor Rogers, rocking a very fresh New York Knicks hat, which we love to see. I did have a website turn on the Knicks back in the day. I decided to stick with the Jets. It worked out for the best. CR, how you doing? Well, I know, actually. What am I actually saying? Never mind. I should have stuck with the Knicks.
Oh, man.
We're a little giddy because we're fresh off recording one of our favorite things to do every offseason for War Room. We just did about 30 minutes on our favorite almost Jets team and story. So if you're not a War Room member yet, check that out. You'll enjoy that episode. You'll enjoy the rewatchables we'll have coming off in the offseason. You'll enjoy the draft guide, the free agency guide, Connor's big board, free agency big board, roster rankings. It's worth it. You're getting content every day and some over there. We've been very busy lately. New show from Will, Nick Mangold on the feed. It's good times out here. CR, how you doing? How you feeling? The Bills, not quite. They're not quite. They didn't quite do it again. I hate to see it. I have to enjoy the AFC East sharing in my misery. Got to enjoy it a little bit.
I'm with you all the way. God, but you put yourself in their shoes and you're like, we'd love to be in their shoes.
I'll be in their shoes.
But talk about, you just got to be asking yourself, what do we have to do to get over the hump? To be fair, back-to-back years of AFC Championship game losses in pretty heartbreaking fashion. So the Jet fan knows what that could be like and how frustrating it could be. I am well. I agree with you. We had a lot of fun with the War Room episode. I mean, the Almost Jets topic is it'll just never die. We'll have new additions every single year, so no matter how high profile the additions can get. So
the team always brings us more stories as Luca and JJ look to chime in the background.
Yeah, they are absolutely in on this episode of Badlands.
They heard me talking about the Almost Jets. I want to we got a great question in the Discord right about this Bills thing. Would you rather basically be a Bills or Jets fan from the past 35 years? So with the Bills, you have more effectively overall success, 35 years that would include the Super Bowl losses. So basically, You've been to 4 Super Bowls, lost them all. You've had all these playoff runs and like memorable games, like the 13-second game. The Jets had that a little bit from 98 to 2011, 3 AFC championship games, 3 pretty painful losses. A lot of playoff runs that ended in tough ways, Doug Bryant, but now you've had this 13 years of nothing. No playoffs, nothing really. Really one relevant year in 2015. It really kind of depends what kind of person you are. I think I'd prefer to be a Bills fan because from a watching standpoint, I enjoyed being a Jets fan more from 1998 to 2011. I enjoyed watching more games than I did from 2011 up until today. My judgment's a little skewed because I enjoy doing this so much. It kind of balances out how bad the team is. But from a pure football watching fan standpoint, I had a lot more fun those years than I have the last 13 years, like half the time rooting for them to lose because they're so bad. I think that's what I go with.
100%. I think we're so far removed from the team being consistently competitive that you almost forget. Like you said, we opened the pod in an odd way, basking in the misery of other AFC East teams.
That's all we have.
To be fair, listen, I'm not above that. Like no Jets fan is. I mean, no Jets. I remember my dad called me. I forget what game it was that the Dolphins, one of the Dolphins games towards, maybe it was after they beat Dallas. And he was like, this team is complete frauds. Like, they're not going to win shit in the playoffs. And I was like, I agree with you. I was like, but that's how we look at things that late in the year all the time, is because the Jets, they're just never there. And going into any game and expecting to compete is a much better feeling, even if you deal with heartbreaking loss, because what you forget in the moment, now you look back, like the Bills, right? I mean, losing 4 Super Bowls, you look back at that and go, how is that scientifically, mathematically even possible? That's insane. But if you put yourself in the moment, like we did with the Jets, and, like we probably as fans did with the Jets in 09 and 10, when you lose those heartbreakers that were such high stakes, you're upset, sure, for 24 to 48 hours, whatever it is. But then you're programmed to say, okay, here's what we have to do, and we're going to get it right next year. You don't sit there and just think, we'll never get that game back. My life will never be this. Like, you just, a sports fan, you don't live that way. You always think, here's what we're going to get right and why we're going to be better next year. And even if you're not, it's just an endless cycle. with the cycle we're in now for 13 years, I mean, genuinely at times you start to actually lose that hope. It's insane to say that because it's sports. Anything can happen. One Patrick Mahomes or whatever player it could be can completely alter the course of your franchise forever. But like the Jets are at the point right now where with this, and I know they've had good intentions plenty of times, but ownership, they have missed at putting the right football people in charge so many times. And they've made their own bad decisions that you just sit there and go. And obviously, we talk about this team every week on a show. So we always are looking for the solutions and the answers. But man, it is very, very frustrating in a sense to live like that for that long, where I would say just no way. Like I would do anything to go back to the having high stakes and being let down rather than just never even getting the chance to be let down.
Staying with something we saw a lot of divisional weekend, saw a lot of Sam Laporta catching passes, a lot of Dalton Kincaid catching passes, a lot of Travis Kelce, shout out Jake, catching passes. So we've gotten this question. We've gotten a lot of questions about Bowers. And I think this one was an interesting way to frame it because I'm really curious for your opinion on this. This is from MN35. If you use Bowers strictly as a receiving tight end, where would he rank with the other receivers as a playmaker in this year's draft overall? So, there's going to be some mocks that give the Jets Bowers at 10 because they could use that kind of dynamic playmaker.
And they're not idiots.
And he seems to be that. I mean, you tell me. He seems to be like, I don't want to use the word generational, but seems to be like a uniquely special like tight end prospect. So where does he fit? And would the Jets have any idea how to use him?
Well, Aaron Rodgers would. Aaron Rodgers has liked his tight ends in the past, so I don't worry about that. I look at Bowers, right, who right now for me is my 7th ranked player in the draft, and like easily playmaker number 3. It's just Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and then him. I think he's a better prospect than Rome Odunze, and I don't know if anybody will agree with that, but I don't care. I don't think it's close. I really think Bowers' floor is George Kittle, and that is insane to say. That's insane to say. Kittle's already had 3 seasons over 1,000 yards, and he's 30 now, but I mean, Kittle's had a really nice career. Kittle was also 24 when he was drafted. I mean, I have to do a quick Google. Brock Bowers just turned 21 in December.
Ooh.
So he's a 21
young prospects. I love that. Finally.
He's just different. He's just different. And you look at the way Georgia used him. By the way, how Todd Monken used him.
Of course. Yep.
I mean, they played him like a wide receiver all the time. Threw him screens, threw him jump balls, run go routes and fades. And he's a freak. He's a total freak. It's once again, I have this conversation with you every year now for the last 3 years, and it's very frustrating that the Jets have botched their drafts enough over the last couple of years that they haven't afforded themselves the luxury to take players like this. I don't know who it was last year where I had that quote. It's bothering me now that I can't remember, but probably JSN.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it was probably JSN where I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, guys, I would love for the Jets to take JSN. Or I literally found the tweet because I was curious if I connected Cansey to the Jets, who Cansey just looked great for the Bucs this year.
Yeah.
And
we know Dan wanted him and was hurting watching,
Dan
all those plays. Yeah.
When Broderick went off the board, I tweeted the Jets should be taking Cansey or JSN. And the thought was, but what's funny is that thought was like, man, I don't know if they've afforded the luxury to take a wide receiver or another interior D line, but those are just the 2 players I loved. And they take an edge rusher.
Of course.
They take an edge rusher. They didn't need an edge rusher. So it's in hindsight, it's kind of a stupid way to look at it because they don't even follow their own problems. But it's pretty clear the Jets are taking an offensive lineman at 10 unless they could actually close on real pro acquisitions this year. And we haven't been confident in them doing enough of that. Bowers would be amazing. That's how I'll close it. I mean, he would be an incredible player for this team for 10 years.
One of those ones that would just be hard to complain about. Of course, you want to see the full, tapestry of how the offseason plays out, but
yeah,
too good of a prospect, and they just need
they
need ability to score points, and people who are going to aid in that process. It's very hard to complain about. Also feels like, I don't know, 10 to 15% less likely Devontae Adams happens now with them retaining Pierce. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe that's an exaggeration. Maybe Pierce really wants to be ground and pound and doesn't value receiver as much. We're going to see who how the rest of the org shakes out. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see sort of what that pivot ends up being at receiver if it doesn't happen with him, and then how that complements how they build the rest of the offense. Is it Sutton? Is it Ridley? Or can they do what other teams do, the playoff teams we're watching do, find guys on day 2 and day 3, day 3 in particular, as pass catchers who can make an immediate impact? And we got another question around this that from MY Jets 1250, can you guys touch more on the repercussions of Douglas's awful day 3 track record has had on this team? Furthermore, do you think outside of keeping one for a developmental QB, this team should prioritize trading their upcoming day 3 picks for established talent, since Douglas has proven he cannot identify talent there? I would say cannot identify offensive talent there. He's had a couple on defense,
Right.
Couple, but offensively, no, there hasn't been anything. They haven't even tried enough, I would say, because again, you had the Sherwood and Nazardine and Jonathan Marshall and Zaire Barnes and Jarrett Bernard Converse, and you just feel like how many of those guys could have been receivers or tight ends or offensive linemen instead, even if they had other positions where they've taken that. This would seem to me like, in Douglas's situation and this team situation, the kind of year where they would do that.